Hello, everyone. I'm Abraham George. I serve as a chairman for the Republican Party of Texas. I have some awesome friends here with me who are some of the strongest voices from both the Texas House and our Texas Senate. We just wrapped up the 89th legislative session. We're gonna talk about all the good things, all the bad things, and what we could have done to make it even better. Because the 90th session is coming up in few months. We may even have a special session. So we'll dive into all of those good stuff. So before we get there, I wanted to introduce our guest here. I want to start with Tony Tinderholt, representative, good friend of mine, been a fighter, a warrior at the Texas House for uh,
6 terms.
6 terms now. So Tony Tinderholt is here, and then we have our Shelley Luther, the famous Shelley Luther is here, and thank you for being here as well.
Thank you.
We have Senator Bob Hall. He has been one of those fighters who in the Texas Senate and we'll talk about SB 75 in a few minutes right here. So then we have, again, famous Mitch Little, Representative
I'm famous
Mitch
for
Little.
sitting next to Shelley Luther.
There is always that, and
Close.
that helps. That actually helps. And when Attorney General Ken Paxton was impeached and the whole process, Mitch Little was one of the lawyers, and he just became the Texas icon since then, and now a representative at the Texas House. So thank you for being here, and of course our Senator Bryan Hughes is here as well, and you've been a wonderful help for the party for many years, and I can always count on you to just call you and make sure that we get the bills moving. These are the people that I text and I call and say, hey, can you help me with this bill? Can you help me with this amendment? So they've done an awesome job in 89th session and prior sessions as well. So thank you all for being here, and we're going to just jump right into it. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Yes.
So,
good.
Senator Bob Hall, we'll start with you. Tell me, what are your overall thoughts about 89th legislative session?
Well, I think this is, since I've been there, and I haven't been there as long as a couple at the table here, I thought it was better than the previous sessions overall. It was not as good as it could have been or should have been, but I do think we did manage to make some movement in some areas, particularly in elections, security, and few other areas that I think are really good. The groundbreaking or historic tax breaks for the seniors in particular is a major move in the right direction. A lot of work left to be done there, but I do think we address the principles of liberty and from a conservative standpoint more than any other.
That's awesome. I do want to go to Representative Mitch Little. One of your bills, House Bill 4623, it tackled some really important issue. Can you share with us on details on that and kind of tell us what was the motivation behind it and how it's going to turn out for the
I'll be
Texas?
happy to. This is one of those stories that it's emblematic of how the legislative session works. Filing this bill was almost an afterthought. It had a very high bill number because I filed it well after we started the session, but I was in a meeting with another representative and a representative of the TEA as well, and I said, why do our schools have sovereign immunity in situations where there's child sex abuse? And so we were fortunately able to pass this bill out of the House, ending sovereign immunity for school districts in cases involving child sex abuse. It went over the Senate, few changes were made, and now it's on the governor's desk. But this is the perfect example of having great partners in the House. You guys were wonderfully supportive of the bill, and then great partners in the Senate. Bryan, Bob, and Angela Paxton carried the bill in the Senate. We got it across the finish line. This, I think, is going to make a big difference for kids in schools. It's going to give school districts a reason to address this massive problem that we have.
Right. I think one of the most famous video clips that came out was part of this bill.
Mr. Little, may I ask why this bill doesn't extend to private schools that receive voucher money?
Because they're not immune from suit. In fact, I've sued some of them.
Okay, thanks.
Right, where you were asked by a Democrat, and I think she was very sincere when she asked that question, where how come the private schools don't have the same problem? And
Yeah,
you
because
said
they don't enjoy that immunity. And
That's right.
I love Jolanda. She was it's one of the It's one of the interesting things about serving in the legislature. You end up liking some of the opposition more than you thought you would. And I think, Tony, you told me that was going to happen, and you were right about that.
Yeah, I think that was awesome that you were not making fun of her. This was just a simple answer. We enjoyed it in the gallery, but that's different. But because we're Republicans and we take every shot at Democrats if we can, but that's different. But I do want to come to you, Senator Hughes, about House Bill 119, which was a big step in basically making people to register if they're lobbying for foreign entities or foreign nations. If you can expand on that, that'll be great.
So a number of bills this session dealing with our hostile foreign adversaries. We think about ownership of land. That was a big deal, big accomplishments there with Senate Bill 17. But there were about a half a dozen bills dealing with the threat, mainly from the Communist Chinese Party. We think of that as a national issue, and the feds have always dealt with that, and they have a role. But more and more, state governments and states are being targeted. And as you know, Texas sets the example. And so when we move, other states tend to follow. So that bill is to make sure that a company that's controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, for example, is not lobbying in the Texas legislature. A number of bills like that to protect us in higher ed, because we have foreign students and foreign professors who are often being blackmailed from their family, being held hostage back home in a foreign country, saying, steal this intellectual property, steal this defense technology. So Texas, like in so many ways, is leading the country in making sure we're protecting Texans from hostile foreign adversaries. That bill was a big part of that.
Well, we really appreciate that. I'll come to you, Tony, about that one specific subject in a second, but I do want to talk to you, Representative Luther, about Bill number 3441, which was a big deal for you. You have some personal experience behind that as well, so tell us about it.
Well, actually, it's really cool to be sitting with these people because you chaired the committee that it went through in the Senate. You carried the bill in the Senate, my desk mate, and then we'll talk more about Tony, what an influence and what a positive energy he brought to help us be totally prepared. Not totally prepared because it's crazy, but as prepared as we could be, he really helped with that. But HB 3441 basically means that if vaccine manufacturers want to advertise in Texas, then they need to accept liability for vaccine injuries. And I really think it's the first step in the nation to kind of take a swipe at that federal overreach is what it is, honestly, because you should not be able to advertise and not be liable for your product. And so by saying, well, people keep saying, well, that's a federal law. And I'm like, yeah, but we control who advertises in Texas. And go ahead and advertise here, but then you're liable. So I bet it's going to get rid of, at the least, get rid of the vaccine commercials. And hopefully next session, we'll just go after all the pharmaceuticals.
Well, that's amazing. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, that was a great bill, and I was really honored to be able to carry it. But it had more importance to me than that. It solved a problem we had said for years is not solvable. The federal government have taken a position that the vaccine companies were protected.
Yeah.
And so we felt helpless to do something. Shelley came up with the idea, let's do an end run. We won't go directly for them on the efficacy of their vaccine. We will go another route and achieve the same goal. And that's something that I think is a lesson we learn for other legislation when we say, gee, we just can't do something about this because the federal government's in the way. We now see there are ways to get around the roadblocks that the federal government have put up. And this to me is a watershed moment for us thinking differently about other bills and other places in which the federal government is getting in our way.
Well, that's an awesome segue to the next part where I wanted to ask Representative Tony Tinderholt about SB 17. This is one bill I think it was amazing. The whole process even taught me a lot about how crazy the legislators can get. Be honest with you. And we had, I don't know, probably 50 phone calls about that one bill, which bans China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran from purchasing land in Texas. You were not the author of the bill, but you pretty much carried that bill in-house. I mean, worked with us for handling all the amendments, all the issues we saw. Let's talk about that in detail. Then we will come back to I'm going to ask the rest of the members and the senators about your role in last session.
Okay. So it started off not a great bill, and worked with Cole Hefner, who really, in the end, the bill was up and down, and in the end, I think he did a really good job of carrying that bill. The first thing that we did was we begged him to put a severance clause in the bill in case something was found unconstitutional, that the rest of the bill would stay, and he did it without question. Then we wanted the domicile piece added in, and there was a lot of hiccups. Most of the stuff that we wanted added in got added in. And then when it came out with the committee sub the day before, I think that it came to the floor, a lot of that stuff was gone. And we were pretty disappointed. And you and I were doing probably 50 phone calls back and forth, back and forth. The beauty in it is that the conservatives and the freshmen all stepped up to the plate. Everyone did these amendments, and the House voted the right way. And that bill got restored back to being a really good bill, probably one of the most powerful bills in the country for a foreign adversary buying or leasing land in Texas, which could be horrible for us. And without going into too much detail, these people come from another country. They'll oftentimes have a work visa or a school visa, but they're collecting intelligence against us. And we don't want them owning land close to a military installation or close to infrastructure, because that intelligence will all get added up, and it'll be highly classified intelligence when you put those pieces together. Bill turned out to be a great bill, and I can't say thank you enough to the party. Thank you to Cole Hefner, and thank you to the people on the floor for voting the right way.
Absolutely. I know the SREC, the party was kind of a pain during that process, but honestly, we don't apologize for it because that's our job as well. And
we
you worked
even,
with us.
We even had a conference call with all
Right.
the SREC members.
Yeah, you came on board.
From the
I think
floor.
Nate was there. I think Andy was there. So a couple of the members showed up, and we kind of worked through the language on some of those issues and concerns, and I really appreciate that. I know Representative Little, you were part of the conference committee on that, and you made sure that bill comes out awesome, and thank you for that.
Well, I got to carry a few of the amendments on the floor, but that, to me, that bill was a great example of what is supposed to happen in the legislature, that you have strong conservatives on the Senate side working simpatico with strong conservatives on the House side to make sure that the bill is the final product that we need it to be. My observation about when we go over to the Senate side, things seem to work a little bit more harmoniously, and in the House side, we really need a battlefield commander, and that's Tony Tinderholt, honestly.
Yep.
I mean, a quiet professional to
Yep.
help
Very
us
nice.
For sure.
Well,
navigate
let's
all
talk
of that.
about that. This session, I think you kind of, I don't know if I want to use this word, but you kind of turned into a godfather for the conservative side of people, where I could just basically call you and say, can you make this happen? And you always went to all the conservatives, especially the freshmen who came in this time. There's 25 of them on our side. And a couple of days ago, I was at an event, and I said, on a given day, I can count on about 25 to 28 members on the House side. Absolutely, they will be on the conservative side.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's every other once in a while, we'll get about another 25 on our side.
Mm-hmm.
Then the rest, you never know. But you worked hard to get everyone together to pass bills like SB 17. So I'm going to ask Shelley Luther and Mitch Little about this, and just tell us about it.
He's going to hate this, but there's not enough that we can say about what he has done for us as a freshman class. We've been meeting for months, spending all day talking about stuff. And what they taught us before we came in is all of the stuff that would normally bog down a freshman when they got there. So how to pass bills, what you need to do to even file a bill, what is legislative counsel, what are all of these things that campaigning, you don't know any of that. Or I don't, and I'm not an attorney, so it probably was a lot easier.
I didn't either.
Okay, there you go. That makes me feel a little better. But anyway, the greatest thing about Tony Tinderholt is he never spoke for us. He could guess where we would go, but he's like, I don't speak for them, but I'll go ask them. And he never told us what to do. He always said, what do you guys think about this? Because he knew a lot of us fought really hard. I mean, that was my third campaign to win, so we all fought and we earned our spot there, and he treated us with ultimate respect. But the way that he worked to prepare us for what would normally bog down a freshman in the Texas House was just amazing. So
And
thank you.
I want to
Thank
say
you.
thank you. And my whole goal this session was to not try to push any of my own bills. My goal was to teach, coach, and mentor people of things that I had learned for 5 sessions and help them get bills across the line and help conservative legislation pass. And I feel like probably not the number one best person to do it, but I feel like I did the best that I could. And really, it came down to the fact that they were amazing. The freshmen were absolutely amazing.
You're absolutely right.
Well, let me take the politician hat off for a second and just say this is what leadership looks like. When you come in the house, you're a brand new freshman, you don't really know how to do anything. You got a lot of energy, you got a lot of principle and belief. You're excited to be there, but it's hard to direct that energy in a place that's productive. And so when you have somebody like Tony who's been there for a long time, he can help apply that energy in a positive direction and make sure that we actually get things done. I remember natural conflicts happened during the session, and Tony says, "Well, I'm gonna go speak on our behalf to the speaker," and I was just like, "You can do that?" And it's like, yeah. And he did. I mean, you probably did that 24 times or more over the course of the session to negotiate our way into a better outcome. And honestly, great example of a leader not putting himself first, putting the mission and the men and women in front of himself and what he was trying to achieve. So, true example of leadership.
But by example, like you are the example. And one last thing I want to say is, and I think Mitch and I really took, and we've never spoken about this, but one of his main things he said was, you can think differently than everybody on the floor, but you must always respect everyone on the floor and treat them kindly because they're doing the same thing as you. They just don't think like you. And if you treat people with honest, kind respect, then you will be respected on the floor no matter how you vote. And I honestly feel like
that was great advice.
That was the best advice we could get because I voted my district. I voted my district and no one got mad because I was nice to them all. Right. All of them.
Yeah.
No, even if we were mad at each other the day before, hi, how are you today on the next floor? And everybody's like, why are you always smiling? Because it's better than crying. You know what I mean? So it really was one of the most, and probably why we were able to actually pass a Republican priority as freshmen.
And passed a number of them. And I don't know what it was like for you, Senator Hughes, when you were in the House, but it felt like we were coming in as part of a team. I think if we had not had this level of structure and organization that the conservative movement pulled together through Tony and some of the other upperclassmen, we would have had a much harder time.
And they were so happy because there were like 4 to 8 or 10 of them last time. And when they're like, well, who wants to sign this so we can stop this? People lined up and piled on. He's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, you know? So it was really cool to finally have some support. And you guys weren't like the only ones seem like mad all the time.
Right. Yep. There were sessions where you would have 5 people on your side or conservative side, basically. There are more conservatives there. They just don't want to be picked out by the leadership and retaliated against. So,
I think what happens is we had 4 to 15 consistent votes last session, the session before. This time, when you have a large number of really high quality conservative freshmen come in, if you look at the vote counts, our 4 to 15 went from 25 to 54 votes on everything that we did. And next session, if we can do something similar, those will go to 30 and 40 people all the way up to 75 or 80. Mm-hmm. And so them coming in and being the caliber that they are literally changed the landscape on votes for the floor. And the Senate and Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor, looks at those votes when they come across. If there's 4 to 15, it's a lot different than having 25 to 54.
I hope you guys do too.
No, I would say what you're saying was very obvious because I was very frustrated in previous sessions of the infighting that was going on. And the personal side, I don't like so-and-so, I'm not going to cooperate with them. Mm-hmm. The tone that we could see, or from my perspective, of more working together and being respectful. And that's an excellent point. In this job we have, it is a people's job. It is a relational job. Mm-hmm. And so recognizing that relationships are more important than principles, mm-hmm. because most people's principles are fairly wide sometimes and they overlap. Mm-hmm. And so what you do when you have the hostility there, you take that overlap away where I'm not going to agree with you no matter what it is,
Mhm.
kind of thing.
But I
And that-
still like you.
Yeah.
Like it's still fine. We're just not going to get.
But we've had people in the past that couldn't do that.
Right.
That I tell you, is what I saw in there with this group that came in. It's not just that it was 25 freshmen. We had quality freshmen that came in with the right attitude of going in there and wanting to work and being open-minded, recognizing what they didn't know. And I listened to you talk about here, knowing you didn't know.
We still
And
don't know.
therefore,
Still
I,
figuring it out.
well, I don't know. I learn every day down there. But having that open attitude to say, okay, how can we work this together? You know, why can we get the part that we agree with, and we'll leave out the part that I want, and we'll leave out the part you want over here on this end. But that middle section, we can get that in there, and that's the way you found with the bills over there.
And
I think. Oh, I'm sorry. I think that was with my bill when it went over to the Senate. He's like, I don't know if I can keep your bill whole. We're hearing that we're going to have to amend it, and I'm like, I really don't want to. And he said to me, "Let me teach you something. If you get too stuck on keeping it exactly perfect how you want it, you might lose out on taking a tiny step forward with it."
Right.
And I said, I trust you. You do. I would like you to keep it whole, but if you can't, I trust you. You do what? And in your committee passed it out with him carrying the bill exactly how I had it.
And
That's perfect.
what that to me was, I've spoken about this a number of times, the major difference between Democrats and Republicans. If you gave each one of them an elephant to eat and said, eat that elephant, the Democrats would have it carved up into little pieces and finished off in a short period of time. The Republicans over here be wondering, figuring out, how am I going to swallow this elephant all in one big bite? And that's a kind of a cute story, but it emphasizes we're better off of getting a little bit
Right.
this time
Move the
to get a
goal,
little
move
bit
to
more,
the goal,
because
right? Like
getting the more the second time is much easier than holding out to get everything. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping that our folks out there that want things done understand that getting some or most is better than getting none.
You know,
Well,
one of the
let's-
things I
yeah,
want
go
to say
ahead.
real quick on
Yeah.
this was when I would go back to talk to the speaker all the time, and I think I said this to a lot of the freshmen, if you'll let go of your name off of a bill and worry about policy, Republicans win. And a lot of times we would always try to bring a freshman into the meeting with the speaker, myself and Nate Schatzline. And one of the things that I would always tell the speaker was, I don't care about who authors that bill. I don't care whose bill it is. We want policy. Because oftentimes he'd say, what do you guys want? I'm like, more policy. We want more Republican policy. We want more Republican priorities. Yeah, but what do you want for the freshmen? I'm like, the freshmen and all of us, we want more Republican policies. And I think with me not going back next session, I think one of the things I'd like people to remember is remove yourself from the situation and having your name on a bill, and just always push leadership for more policy, and you'll leave with a very, very positive session. I really believe that.
That's awesome. Well, that's perfect segue to talk about. I mean, we talked about Republican Party priorities so far, and well, that's not the only things you guys did. You guys had an awesome session, honestly, with conservative priorities, conservative principled priorities, and let's talk about some of those. You mentioned earlier about the abortion bill. That's one of the things that we. Even though it was a priority in the priority list, it didn't make it to the top 8, mainly because we have banned abortion in Texas. School choice was another priority in the past and did not make it to. Property tax was another priority that did not make it to the top 8 because during our last convention, it was the time of Biden. So we had other priorities of federal overreach and border security and things like that. People were very worried about. So let's talk about some of those things from both chamber and kind of go into that.
So let's talk about kind of the group of them and how I think we could get better wins. The abortion pill ban. Leadership was talking about the fact that they were afraid there would be lawsuits on how do you hold a doctor or medical or pharmaceutical company accountable for shipping things across state lines. Then we also missed the boat on property tax, or not property tax, but on taxpayer-funded lobbying, where your tax dollars are being used to lobby against you in Austin. We could go on 10 or so that we missed the boat on. I think the way to get those things to pass is for the Speaker of the House to use the masses of Republicans to become Speaker of the House, because instead of stacking those at the end of the calendar on the last day, which you remember we were fussing with the Speaker the whole time about how far in the calendar are we going to get before the end of the day. The Democrats wanted to get at page 7. We wanted to get to page 18, and we were fighting for that. If we can get a Republican Speaker, and it will probably most likely be Destin Burrows, to use the majority of Republicans in the House to become Speaker of the House, we can stack all of those bills in the first 2 months when we're on the floor doing these things, and we can get those things passed, and then we'll go try to find 12 members, 12 Democrats to pass the constitutional items, or like Senator Hull and I, we were all talking earlier, or let's go get 12 Republican seats.
There you go.
I know that's a longer introduction into it, but I think that's how we could have won these, is by the Speaker not being at all beholden to Democrats at all whatsoever.
That's amazing. Well, the idea was that was the idea in the beginning. Then, we had a pretty bad start with that whole thing. But let's forget that for now and let's move on to the next side, right? So, a couple of things I do want to talk about is taxpayer-funded lobbying that it almost passed. I mean, the Senate had a good bill. Mace Middleton put that bill together. SB 19 came over. Well, it was gutted a little bit before it got to the House, but it came over, and then it just basically died. It just did not make it. I'm hearing Governor Abbott may put that as a priority for the special session if we're going to have one, which I'm hearing we're going to have one. So by the time this airs, we may be in a special session. We'll see. So what are your thoughts on that, Senator Bob Hall and Bryan Senator Hughes, if you don't mind talking about the SB 17, or SB 19 specifically, or just overall taxpayer-funded lobbying?
It's a problem. Whenever someone hears about taxpayer-funded lobbying, they kind of scratch their heads. What are you talking about? They're using our tax dollars being used to pay lobbyists. Of course, folks in our Republican circles get it, but it's a man on the street type question. No one is for that when it's presented to them. It just makes sense. And so, obviously, locally elected officials we all work with. We all have county commissioners and county judges and city councilmen and mayors. And in the House, with smaller districts, there tends to be more pressure from locally elected officials, maybe, than in the Senate. And so that's always been an issue with trying to pass a ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying. The bill came to the House floor not too long ago and didn't make it on the House floor a couple of sessions back. Senator Hall and I were both in the Senate at that time. The Senate has passed bans before, but even in the Senate, it's not easy. Again, because locally elected officials, who are good folks, they contact their reps and they contact their senators. And so that has been a tougher nut to crack than you would expect. We're all on record opposed to it. We've all voted against it. We'll continue to vote against it. It is frustrating to come so close and see that not pass.
Yeah. Some of the arguments that I've heard, I mean, I went and testified at the Senate about this bill, supporting the bill. And there was a guy sitting next to me, and he is basically a taxpayer-funded lobbyist, and he said, "Well, I'm going to lose my job if this passes." And his whole argument was, well, the local elected officials don't know their representative or their senators, and I think they should. So, if you can speak into that a little bit, and your thoughts on this taxpayer-funded lobbying altogether.
I think it's going to take a more education of the public, understanding what it is and how much money is being spent and why it's being spent. And it wasn't just our local elected officials. The folks at TASA and TASB with the schools were working very strongly against it. And there's a lot of money that's spent on trying to lobby. I've talked to officials. I said, I give my phone number, my personal cell phone number. You have an issue, call me. The difference between you calling me, Mr. City Councilman or county official, and a lobbyist is, I'll listen to you. But a lobbyist is a lobbyist. I'll be courteous to them, let them sit there. They can talk. I'll give them a cup of coffee, some iced tea, and say goodbye when they leave. And I probably didn't hear a word they had to say. And so it's really a major waste of money. Right. With lobbyists that are used by local governments to lobby, because they're lobbying against things that we're trying to do to protect the people. from things out there.
But let me be clear. So the grassroots and the people watching need to know that when that bill died, there were other avenues that we were trying to use as Republicans. Death Star Bill 2, the bill that kind of piggybacked Speaker Burrow's bill from last session.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to get to that bill on the last day so we could tack it on there. We had worked with the parliamentarian to make sure it was germane, and it was. In Doge, we killed the sunset safety bill so that it would force the ethics commission to the floor so we could tack it on there. We were trying in every possible way to get this on. Republicans were working it, and we didn't give up until the last day, and until they gavelled us out. So I hope that it comes back as a special session item.
That's awesome.
You bet.
I do want to talk about something that's very out there, and it's more about the party than the legislator itself. But one of the things we've been asking as the party for many sessions was having a closed primary. This year, we had about 3 bills that would have closed the primaries, and a couple of them we got behind really strongly. And again, it didn't go anywhere. And I think party at the last minute of the last weekend, we decided we're going to go to the litigation side of things and see if the court will allow us to have a closed primaries. I don't know if you guys want to comment on this, but let's go around the room, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I want to comment on it. I think one of the reasons it doesn't seem to get traction in the House is it seems like it's almost taboo. The suggestion that closing our primaries would yield different result almost suggests that certain people who are in the House should not be there, but for the participation of Democrats. So that taboo kind of prevents it from coming to the floor. But I mean, rightly, this is a legal question. Does the Republican Party of Texas have the right to determine with whom it associates when those people go on the ballot? I think the answer to that question legally is clearly a yes. For some reason, legislators didn't seem to want to pick it up. You know, we can just take the example of the prior speaker having over 3,000 Democrats cross over in his primary and winning by fewer than 300 votes. This is a live wire, certainly for some Republicans in the House.
It's one of those. Texas is a big state, and people fail to realize that there is a significant difference between something like a Harris County, a Bexar County, Williamson County, and counties that Senator Hughes has, and some that I have. And solutions for one don't necessarily fit with others.
Right.
And as we're in a transition, and my description is probably not going to make some people happy in there, is us trying to find a one-size-fits-all for the state sometimes isn't going to work on things. And particularly in this era when we are in a movement in which we are continuously getting more people voting Republican. And a good many of those are coming from the Hispanic community, and particularly along the border. And when I talk to folks down there about this issue, they'll tell me, our folks down there will vote Republican, but they're not going to register to be a Republican because their boss would fire them. Their neighbor probably wouldn't speak to them. And so it's going to be a problem in parts of Texas. If we do that we will probably reverse the trend of people coming over to vote in doing that. So I can understand it. I would love to see in one respect that where I live, it'd be a piece of cake. I'd love to have closed primaries, but I think we have a job to decide what is the best for Texas. Right. And I don't know if this might be something that we did it and make it a county option. If they did it to allow those counties in which the leadership says that we think we can get more Republican votes by leaving it the way it is, and those that think we can clean up our elections in other places to make that decision.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I got an argument against that. One of the reasons we believe this will fit the whole state. We're choosing the nominee. We're not electing a Republican, right? We are choosing the nominee for the November election. Even, I mean, a good amount of independents thinkers are Republicans, and they'll support a conservative. They don't usually go for the other side, not anymore. I mean, maybe 15 years ago. Now the Democrat Party has gone crazy and AWOL, so they have a choice, and the only choice is the Republican Party. So what we are trying to do in March is we're picking a candidate for the November election, and our idea is we're just choosing a nominee. There are states who do it through a convention or a caucus, so it doesn't stop them from being Republican. But I understand the South Texas concern. I've heard it over and over again, and we actually did a bunch of town halls in that area to kind of educate the people and see and all of those stuff. But you're absolutely right. Not every solution fits every part of Texas. And this is one of the concerns that the legislators had, at least that's what I've been told. But again, like Representative Little said, there are a lot of Republicans who get elected. For example, Dade Phelan's election was close to 3,000 Democrats moved over during the runoff, and he won by 366 votes. Hence the bill number for the meme. So the idea is if it was a close primary, he wouldn't have won. Which is what we wanted. Like, we want strong conservatives on the Texas House and the Senate. So that was the whole idea behind going to a find a lawsuit, basically.
Well, and I understand that, and it may be a point if to try that, try it in some way with our commitment for a couple of elections, see how it works out. One of the things we keep thinking about is every time we're going to do something different, it's going to be permanent forever. If we look at it that way. And the other thing is to recognize this will do nothing in special elections. It will have no impact on special elections.
True. Right.
In there. So
I want to frame it too for people watching. Oftentimes what happens, we all know at the table, that Democrats will decide to choose the least conservative, the least Republican candidate to win the primary because they know they can't win the general election with the Democrats. So they choose the least Republican person. Sometimes they'll even put that candidate up and get that person elected because they'll do a lot of Democrat bidding for them, and that's what we're trying to get rid of. The one thing that I want to be very careful if this passes the legal test is that we ensure that people know that they have to register before we go vote. For instance, if this is going to happen in the March primary, we don't want to lose any Republicans that show up to go vote that might not have known they needed to register. So that's something that we need to seriously consider. But I am totally against an open primary like we currently have. We have to close the primaries.
Yeah, and I will support that. I bring it up so people understand that this is not a narrow issue. It's a very broad issue.
It really is.
And there are good reasons on both sides of it so that people make an informed decision.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, the logistics of it's a concern for sure. But I think we have enough steps in place that we think will make that happen. Yeah. Do you want to comment on it? Or
no, makes sense. We want Republicans voting in Republican primaries. Senator Hall's point's well taken. A generation ago in East Texas, where we live, the Democratic Party was a dominant party. All the elected officials were Democrats. Now, folks voted for Reagan, and they voted for Republican governors and even congressmen, but they voted in the Democratic primary for those local officials. And at that time, when the Democrats were dominant, they liked it like it was because they were in the reverse situation we're in now. So in the Rio Grande Valley, where we're on the ascent and they're still dominant, Senator Hall's right, the details are important.
And that brings another question, probably not to discuss today, but do we make the local elections more partisan as well? That's something that we need to seriously consider at some point.
That's one thing that I have on my deal. So let's talk about that. So personally, I think every election should be partisan. The reason I say that is we have people who run as conservatives and govern as total liberals, especially in city councils and school boards. That's been consistent for the last 27, 28 years that we've seen. We've been back and looked at the data, and that's, it's consistently, we're about $500 billion in debt or bond debt in Texas only, right? And a lot of these bonds get passed, they're on the ballot on May election, and we barely have 10% showing out. And these 10% is either usually school board members and their friends and the lobbyists and the groups and the teachers unions, and they just basically pass those bonds. And the minimum I would like to see the elections move to November, at least enough people show up. It doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat. They get to decide, okay, do we want to pass a bond that is $70 million for a football stadium when we already have 2 other football stadiums in the district? So those kind of things. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on
Well,
that? I know it's not a subject.
Wouldn't that save money too? There'd
Yeah.
be less election
Absolutely.
cycles.
You bet.
And it's kind of two things. One is, do we move everything to November? And I think the answer might be yes, because then you have one cycle, save money. And the other is, do you make them partisan? And I think most people at the table would agree. There'll be some cities and counties that would push back, but I think making them partisan, mostly because the Democrat Party has moved so far to the progressive side.
Senate Bill 2910, I think his number is our bill that would move everything to November. So no more May elections, city council, school board, bonds, everything in November. Because again, that's where the voters are. That's where the turnout is so high. Now, we recognize that the results would be different. We believe they would. That aside, higher turnout just makes more sense. Even the League of Women Voters, which is not known as a great conservative organization, said, hey, this is higher turnout. It's fewer elections, less voter fatigue. Another advantage of moving, this is sort of back in the weeds, but for politicos, another advantage to moving, getting rid of that May election, that allows us to shorten the runoff period for the primary. So instead of having to wait so long between the primary and the runoff, we could shave 2 weeks off of that as well. So that bill got through the Senate, and so we're going to keep pushing that. That would have moved every May election to November. It makes sense.
Can we ask the governor to add that to a special session potentially? Something like that might be not a bad item for a special.
It makes sense. He published his part of the bill, and it's part of what he described, where we have these property tax protections in place, and yet local governments are able to end run around them, and that's one way. That's one of the big ways.
That's a major thing.
Doing it now would make a lot of sense because we're faced with making a fairly significant change in simplifying our elections.
Yes.
And this would simplify it. It would go along with saving money and get the focus on elections one time.
Yeah.
And get the most number of people out there showing up. So these bond elections are elected by the people, not by 3% or 4%.
That's
That's
right.
right. That's right.
One of the hardest thing for the party, local party, state party, is to get people to the polling location. And when you have a special election, then you have the primary, then you have the runoff of the primary, then you have the May election, then there's a runoff for the May election, then sometimes, like in Frisco recently, had another special election. Then you have the November, like 7, 8 elections in 1 year. People are tired. People are like, I'm not going to show up.
You get voter fatigue.
Yeah.
People get worn out doing it.
So this will solve a lot of that, not all of that, but a lot of that, and save a lot of money because we're not, and find election workers for all of these elections to show up and do all the work. That's another part that EAs are having hard time with. So this is great. I'm glad to see some agreement on this one issue because we are pushing for this, and this is amazing. So
even though that bill did not pass the Senate, didn't quite make it to the House, there were some other bills passed allowing local communities. City of Dallas, there was a bill passed letting City of Dallas go to November for some elections. A number of cities in the Valley. So we're getting there, but we are for the full meal deal, all May elections to November.
Yep.
Well, I want to kind of wrap up in a second, but I wanted to pick up one more major topic, and that is the party is, in the last convention, changed its rules on Rule 44. And that basically allows the party to censure representatives or senators, any elected official. It could be as county commissioner, whatever, any Republican, if they are consistently against the party and its principles and its priority. There's a lot of conversations about it. I know you guys are legislators from both chambers, and I'm sure you've heard some good things and bad things about it. If you want to share some of those here, we'll be happy to get that out to the public. But one thing I do want to say before that is we put together a legislative session task force, basically an evaluation by the SREC. There's about 13 members. Lisa Hendrickson is the committee chair for that, and committee SREC Priorities Committee is part of it. We're going to meet up in August 9th in Austin, and kind of go over the entire session, look at each one of those priorities, and also look at all the conservative priorities. then in October, we're going to meet up one more time to look through any censures comes from the county parties. And because we're going to, this August 9th meeting, we're going to do the entire report and send that out to all the county chairs and the precinct chairs and say, okay, this is what we think. We had a reasonable session. We think we got some of these priorities done. We didn't get everything. This is what all of your representatives did. And now you get to make a choice. Do you want to remove someone from the ballot? And if they have one representative who is really horrible, didn't do anything, and it was consistently against the party and the district, then they get to make that decision. Then we can take that up. So we're going to have an entire day of censure resolution evaluation on October 11th. So all of this is coming out, and it's a process, and I get that. But I know a lot of legislators are very upset about this, and some of them are very happy about this. So we'll see how it all plays out. What are your thoughts?
It's a really fascinating prism that shows how legislators view the world, I think. And what I mean is, you take the people that are the most knowledgeable about the political process in Texas. You take your state Republican executive committee members, your party chair, your local county chair, and all those precinct chairs, and all the people that do all the serving. And for a legislator to say, I don't think I should be accountable to those people, what they really mean is, I think I have a better chance of convincing low information voters that I'm the right person than I do of being held accountable to the standards that the people who are paying attention are promulgating. Does that make sense?
That does.
For any elected official, whether you're the governor or you're down to the lowest precinct chair, everyone has to be accountable. There are layers of accountability that are good for us. We're not only accountable to the voters, the people who go and cast the ballots at the voting booth, but we're accountable to those precinct chairs. I have to see these people. I have to see the people at the clubs, the county chair, et cetera. And they have to know that I am adhering to what their standard is for a Republican representative.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we all have a master. And, it goes God, to my wife, to all these other people in my life that hold me accountable, my law partners, down to the county chair and the precinct chairs, and everybody else who's watching what I'm doing and ensuring that I'm the person that I said I was.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah. It's a campaign promise, right? Every Republican out there runs as a conservative. It doesn't matter how they govern. Everyone runs as a conservative, and I've never seen a campaign mailer that says I'm a moderate Republican. That's everyone there. Nobody does that. But they go back and they govern as a moderate, sometimes as a liberal. So this is one mechanism that state party convention put together. I had nothing to do with it. I was running my own campaign during that times, but the 10,000 delegation of 10,000 people came together and said, "Hey, we need some accountability for the people who are bearing our name and holding Republican elected post or elected positions." So I know. What are your thoughts from the Senate side?
Oh, I think it's a good idea. I mean, we are Republicans. We claim to adhere to the principles and values. And when we go down to Austin and we do something other than that, I would expect to be called out for it. It went down there and said one thing and then did another. And so I'm all for accountability, and I think that would be a good idea. And I would just kind of roll into a suggestion that this conversation we've had here might want to think about doing something similar to this at the convention each day at some particular hour, and let people come in and sit and listen and then have this conversation and rotate legislators, have a different group there each day. Say at 1:00, we're going to get together and going to go through a series of questions and discussions like this, because I think it would be helpful to the people to hear some of these conversations, what we've had here today about doing the work of the people down in Austin is significantly different than going out and talking to people in the district about things and so on.
Yeah.
So I think it might be informative that we could do something like that.
That is awesome. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you. But before that, if you have any open comments, you want to kind of put it out there, let the people know what's happening, what you're expecting for the next special session or next legislative session, which is in about 18 months from now. So I'll kind of go around I know you are.
I do.
You might want to say something about, if you're going to be at the next session or not.
So I'll be at special session if there's a special session. I have about 18 and a half months left to serve. I'm honored to serve, but I think my message would be direct to the current Speaker of the House. And it would be that I oftentimes talk to the Republican members and leadership, and I said, if the Speaker feels like he's on the second patio balcony, all the Republicans below him will catch. Just jump, and we'll catch him. And so my ask would be, I'm not going back next session. The 90th session, I won't be there. I'm going to be doing something else, and I'm going to be the best dad ever with my children. I would say that we have a better shot at getting a lot more Republican priorities passed and more policy if the current Speaker or whoever else runs will trust the 88 Republicans to catch him or her. Jump, and the Republicans will catch you, and they will help you through the whole session to pass all these bit of policies, and you will not be beholden to the 60-plus Democrats to stop Republican priority legislation or to give them something so that they can stay Speaker. So I'll just say it one more time, real simple. Dustin Burrows, if it's you, please just jump. I know the Republicans. I've been there for almost 11 years. Jump, and we will catch you.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And honestly, if the Speaker is elected by the Republican caucus, the party is behind him too at that point. I've told this to many people over and over and said, we have no specific allegiance to a specific person. What we care about is our priorities and our principles. And if a person can do that, and by getting elected by Republicans, that's the best way to handle this whole situation.
And it doesn't matter who it is. It might not be Dustin. He could retire. I don't know. But whoever it is, just jump, because the Republicans want Republican leadership.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, well said.
How about you, sir?
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more on that. And with the attitude of working together, I mentioned before, we've got more in common with each other, and even with most of our Democrat friends out there, that if we will work together and focus on the things we can agree on and then move forward to build on that and go for the nose under the tent is acceptable, as opposed to nothing at all. And I think that's one of the big things that we need to overcome, is recognizing that a little bit of progress each time is better than none at all. And I'll give an example, the issue of the grid. I went for, since 2015, getting just a bill passed out of the Senate and never getting any further than that. But with persistence and education, this time we were able to move it not just out of the Senate unanimously, but it came out of the House unanimously. And that was where we worked together to get what the parts that everybody could agree to. It's not the original bill that I had in mind, not what I would like to have passed, but it's what I knew we could get passed.
Right.
And so by focusing on that, and it's the same thing with the elections bill that we got passed at 2753. It's not the bill I would like to have passed, but it's the bill we could get passed because we got enough of what people would agree to and kept out the stuff that they disagreed with. So we got a little bite, which opens the door for next time to build on that and do some of the things we talked about here today. Maybe it's closed primaries. Maybe it's moving to a single election day, moving to hard hand-marked paper ballots, and other things we've talked about that will even make our elections more secure. But we got some good bites this time, and we work towards getting bigger bites next time.
That's awesome. Yeah, we didn't talk about the lottery commission and all of that, but that was a disaster. But you and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and your fellow senators and almost every House member came out in support of basically ending the lottery scam in Texas, but now we moved it out of the lottery commission to a new agency, which is great. And at least we know it's not in the same place and it's not the same corruption. So we'll see how that
No.
plays.
But that's a perfect example. It's not the bill I wanted. I don't think it's not the bill Senator Hughes wanted coming out of the Senate.
Yeah.
Not what you guys in the House wanted to see. It's put them out of business. The Texas government has no business being in the gambling business. There's nothing about protecting individual liberty that supports. But because they bring money in and we're addicted to revenue sources, we had to keep the revenue source. So the best we could do is put them in a real small box with a lot of bright light shining on them until we can come back next time and bring it to an end. But it is an example of compromise to get something done rather than to lose it altogether. Because I know if I had stood and fought to end the lottery, I'd have never gotten a bill passed. That would not
And
have.
this is the discussion you and I had on the Senate floor. I don't know if you remember, I was telling you, I can't be for that bill. And you literally convinced me to change where I was going to be on it, because this is what we can get this session, and next session we'll see where it's at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the idea, get what you can get. There's nothing, in my view, of that's smart battlefield management. It's not cowardice. It's not backing down in the face of the enemy. It's recognizing you can win a little bit of this battle over here. And Tony, I know you know this, and we'll get what we can get over here, and we'll get a little more of what we can get over here. And after all, we can get them surrounded. But if we just back off, we say, no, I got to get them right straight, a frontal attack, and that's the only way we're going to attack, we'll lose more than we'll win.
That's awesome. You turned out to be a 10-year overnight success, Senator Hall. Just keep the chains moving. You know, once I think about this about once a day. It's 2880, the abortifacient drug ban. Even since we've left the session, I still think about it about once a day. I sincerely hope Governor Abbott adds that to a special session call if he calls a special session. You know, it's interesting. Senator Hughes worked so hard on 31, on the Life of the Mother bill. You know, Republicans have been slandered for literally years now after banning abortion that we don't care about mothers. You courageously led that bill. There was concern among Republicans that it was going to be used by doctors as a pretext for elective abortions. I think we resolved that issue. And so we were willing to address that piece on that side. Now the question is, with 2880, are we ready to finish the job? You know, abortifacients in Texas, abortifacients in the United States, they have they result in death 10 times as much as a surgical abortion.
Yeah.
And it's a significant problem. We need to ensure that these drugs are not distributed or sold in Texas or shipped to Texas. And my hope is that we can get those banned soon.
Awesome. Amen. It's all been said so well. And what Senator Hall said about a full frontal assault. Sometimes we are tempted to take what we think sounds courageous. I want all or nothing. Well, probably going to get nothing, right? That's been our experience. We've learned that. But so rather than just being seen as fighting, we're learning to win, to get those wins, to actually move the ball and move policy and help people and bless people. And so it's really encouraging. And Senator Hall's election reform bill is a great example of that. We worked together on that with a big bill that addressed most of the big concerns, and we kept getting blocked. And so Senator Hall went back to the drawing board, thought, prayed, consulted people, and came up with another way to do a major overhaul of our elections that addresses all the big problems, and that's on Governor Abbott's desk. That's the law. That's going to be the law. There's a major win for doing that. And I'll follow up on a couple of us have mentioned the abortion pill bill. Of course, I carried that bill in the Senate, 2880, and got that through the Senate. That bill, the left does not like to talk about that because those abortion pills, I know you know this, but we can't let this go unsaid. Those abortion pills, the law used to require, there was a doctor visit before, doctor visit after. The pills were administered in the doctor's office. Now, under the rules put in place by the previous administration, now a mom receives these pills in the mail. She's not told what's going to happen in many cases. She's often completely alone when she takes these pills. And I'm just going to be very graphic. The first pill starves the little baby, and the second pill causes the little baby to be expelled from her mother's body. Now, if the mom is too far along in her pregnancy, it's not going to work because the little baby's too large and the mom's life is in danger. If a mom has an ectopic pregnancy, her life is in danger. And she doesn't know because there's no in-person doctor visit required. Stopping those pills. That's why we passed Senate Bill 2880. That's why we had such a fight on the Senate floor to get that bill passed.
Yep.
It's about protecting women. We're the ones protecting women, and we will not let that precious little unborn baby who ought to be in the safest place in the world, that little baby who's the most helpless, the most deserving of protection, the most innocent a human can ever be. We got to protect her. And yes, protect those moms who've been lied to and preyed upon. And we're not going to let big pharma do their bidding that they've been trying to do to line their pockets while they're hurting moms and killing babies. So we will pass that bill in a special session, next session. We're not going to give up on that.
Great. Well,
Amen.
That is awesome. Thank you, each and every one of you. I mean, you guys being an awesome partner for the party during the session. And not only that, you played very key roles in getting these conservative legislation out this time. And looks like we have some more work to do. And I'm glad you're sticking around for that. And I think not only that we've had conservative wins this time, we also learned what can we do better next time around, so that we can actually get more practical wins. Not always, screaming all the time. Not really is not the answer all the time. So, but we figured it out, and having SREC members and county chairs and precinct chairs who are now experts at handling legislative sessions, it's wonderful and it's a blessing. So, thank you for all the hard work you guys done, and I love this conversation. We'll continue to have some more of this, and continue to get some more good legislation passed for Texans. And now I've got to say, these guys don't get paid almost nothing. I mean, they don't get paid. I mean, for the amount of time and the expenses they got, but it's really a service, and it's really a calling that they've taken on, and for Texans and for our next generations of Texans. So thank you guys, and God bless you all.